Ethan stared at the glowing forest outside the human colony. The tall silver trees swayed gently under the soft breeze of planet Iridia, their leaves shimmering like liquid metal. Humans had spent years terraforming this world, building domes and habitats that allowed them to survive in the planet's thin, oxygen-rich atmosphere. But this was not just another research mission for Ethan. Today he was going to meet the Luthari for the first time. The Luthari were the native inhabitants of Iridia. From satellite scans and preliminary reports, humans knew that they were peaceful, intelligent, and unlike any species humanity had ever seen. They were tall, almost human in shape, with smooth, luminescent skin that changed color according to their emotions. Their large, expressive eyes seemed to see into the soul, and their long, delicate fingers hinted at extraordinary dexterity. But most importantly, the Luthari were tactile beings. Touch was the language of trust and connection for them. Humans, however, were forbidden from physical contact. Ethan adjusted his communicator and took a deep breath. "This is it," he whispered. First real contact. He walked carefully down the forest path. The humans had set up a clear boundary, a line marked with holographic lights, beyond which humans were not allowed to step. Ethan stopped at the edge and looked into the clearing ahead. There, bathed in the soft glow of bioluminescent plants, stood a Luthari. Her skin shimmered in shades of blue and green, a sign of calm curiosity. Her eyes were wide and bright, reflecting Ethan's own image. She stepped forward slowly, her movements graceful and deliberate. Ethan raised a hand, signaling that he meant no harm. The Luthari tilted her head. Then she spoke, not in words but through vibrations in the air. The communicator translated softly, "Human, you are here, why?" Ethan swallowed. I am here to learn, to understand you." The Luthari blinked, her skin flashing a lighter blue. "Understand touch?" Ethan hesitated. He knew this question could not be answered directly. Humans were forbidden from touching them. The council had been clear. Any physical contact could be dangerous for humans and potentially for the aliens. Scientists feared contamination, disease, and unpredictable reactions. "I cannot touch," he said finally. The Luthari's skin dimmed, turning a sad shade of violet. "Cannot touch? Why?" Ethan looked down at his feet. How could he explain human fear to a being for whom touch was life? "Humans, we are afraid. We do not understand, but we want to learn." The Luthari's expression softened. She tilted her head again and stepped slightly closer, though still outside the boundary. "Afraid of humans?" "No," Ethan said quickly. "Of us touching you, of what might happen." The Luthari's large eyes narrowed, not in anger but in confusion. "But a touch is trust. Touch is life. Without touch, how do you know each other?" Ethan's chest tightened. He had never thought about it that way. For humans, touch was often a simple gesture, a handshake, a hug, a pat on the shoulder. But for the Luthari, it was essential. It was a way of understanding feelings, sharing thoughts, and building bonds. Without it, communication was limited. I see," Ethan said softly. He realized that his people's rules, though meant to protect, were also preventing true connection. The Luthari let out a soft sigh, a sound that almost vibrated in the air. "Sad humans. Fear touch, sad. Cannot share life." Ethan felt a pang of guilt. He had studied alien species before, but none had touched him, emotionally, the way the Luthari did with their presence alone. He wanted to comfort her, to reach out, but he couldn't. The boundary was real, and the council's orders were strict. I want to learn your ways," Ethan said finally. "Even without touch, I will try." The Luthari's skin brightened slightly, flickering between green and blue. "Try, understand. Touch?" "Yes," Ethan whispered. "I will try to understand without touching. I will learn from you." The Luthari stepped back and nodded slowly. Her voice was soft, almost sad. "Then you may learn." Slowly, but humans, touch is forbidden. Why? Ethan didn't answer immediately. How could he? He didn't know the right words. "Humans afraid of the unknown," he said at last. "We had to protect ourselves, but I want to understand you. I want to be your friend." The Luthari paused as if considering his words. Then she spoke, almost to herself, translated by the communicator. "Friend? Without touch? Strange. But maybe possible." Ethan felt a flicker of hope. Yes, maybe possible. For hours, they communicated through gestures, expressions, and the vibrations in the air that the translator captured. Ethan learned how the Luthari expressed emotions: happiness in bright green, curiosity in soft blue, and sadness in violet. They had no spoken language as humans did, but their expressions were clearer, more honest. As the sun of Iridia set, casting long shadows across the glowing forest, Ethan realized he had spent the entire day without touching her, and yet he felt closer than he had to any human. The Luthari had shared pieces of her world, her thoughts, and her feelings, and in return he had shared his own hopes and fears. "Tomorrow," he said quietly, "I will come again. I will learn more." The Luthari blinked, her skin flashing a mix of green and violet. "Come tomorrow." "Yes, learn. Human touch forbidden." Sad, Ethan nodded. He didn't know if humanity was ready to accept the Luthari fully, but he knew he was ready to try. In that moment he felt something powerful, a connection that transcended fear, rules, and boundaries. As he walked back to the colony, the soft glow of the forest behind him, he thought about what the council had said. Humans must not touch the Luthari. But Ethan also thought, humans can understand, humans can learn, humans can grow. Maybe one day fear would give way to trust. Maybe one day, humans and Luthari could touch, and not to harm but to connect. For now all he could do was return tomorrow. And learn. The Luthari watched him leave, her glowing form flickering in the moonlight. She whispered to the air, though Ethan could not hear. "Why? Forbidden. Touch, sad. Humans are strange. Maybe friend." And in that single thought a spark of hope began. A hope that one day the barriers between species could fall, and touch would no longer be forbidden. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the silver trees of Iridia. Its light reflected off the domed colony, painting the metal structures with streaks of gold and orange. Ethan woke before dawn, his mind already filled with thoughts of the Luthari. He could not stop thinking about Lyra, her sad violet glow, the questions she had asked, and the connection he had felt despite the invisible barrier between them. Humans had breakfast in the common hall, but Ethan barely touched his food. Instead, he went to the small research lab that overlooked the forest. He checked the boundary sensors and made sure the translator device was charged. He could not wait to return. When he stepped outside, he saw her immediately. Lyra was waiting near the holographic boundary, her tall form glowing faintly green, indicating calm and cautious curiosity. As soon as she saw him, her skin flickered brighter. "Human, come," she said, the vibrations of her words softly translating through his device. Ethan smiled and raised his hand in greeting. "Hello, Lyra. I am happy to see you again." Lyra stepped closer, though still outside the boundary. "Again?" "Yes, learn." Yes, Ethan said. "I want to understand you better. Today, that I want to know your ways, your life." The Luthari tilted her head, considering his words. "Life, touch." "Important, human." "Forbidden." Said, "Why?" Ethan sighed. "I do not know. Humans, we are afraid. We do not understand your touch, but I want to learn, even without it." Lyra's skin dimmed slightly, violet creeping into her glow. She made a small motion with her hands, almost like weaving the air. "Without touch. Difficult. But maybe learn." For hours, Ethan and Lyra explored communication through gestures and expressions. He watched her carefully, noting how her skin changed color with emotion. Green meant happiness or approval, blue meant curiosity, violet meant sadness or confusion. Each flicker of light told him more than words could. Lyra showed him how the Luthari gathered food from the forest. They did not just pick fruit or plants, they communicated with them, feeling the life in the roots and leaves. Ethan was amazed. Humans harvested with tools and machines, efficient but distant. The Luthari touched each plant gently, listening with their senses, and harvested without harming. "See," Lyra said, her skin bright green with pride. "Touch, life, connection." Ethan nodded. "I see, it is beautiful. Your touch respects life." Lyra's glow softened, a hint of violet remaining. "Humans, afraid, touch, respect life is strange. But maybe, possible." Ethan felt a pang of guilt. Yes, humans respected life, but they also feared it. Fear had built walls between them and the Luthari. He wanted to break those walls. Days passed and Ethan returned to the forest every morning. Each day he learned more about the Luthari, their rituals, their music, their way of understanding the world. They did not speak as humans did, but their world was full of expression. Their songs were not sounds alone, but vibrations through the air, sensed by touch and by feeling. Humans could hear them faintly, but the Luthari experienced them fully. Ethan tried to imitate the songs, waving his hands and moving in rhythm, and Lyra's laughter, a musical vibration, filled the air. Her skin glowed bright green, and for a moment Ethan felt he had bridged the barrier, but always the boundary remained. Always he could not touch her. One afternoon, Ethan returned to the clearing to find Lyra sitting quietly, her glow dim and violet. Something was wrong. What happened? Ethan asked softly. Lyra looked at him, her large eyes filled with sadness. Humans. Forbid. Touch. My kin, sad. Lonely. Afraid. Ethan frowned. Your kin? Yes, other Luthari. We need touch. Share feelings. Learn trust. Humans. Forbid. Sad. Lonely. Ethan's heart sank. He realized that it was not just about him and Lyra. All Luthari were suffering under the human rules. Their world was connected through touch, and humans had unknowingly cut them off from their own way of life. I did not know, Ethan said. I will try to help. I will teach humans, maybe. They can understand, Lyra tilted her head. Teach humans touch. Forbidden. Why? I do not know, Ethan admitted. But fear. Rules. Humans afraid. Afraid of unknown. But I think humans can learn if they see your ways. Kindness. Lyra's glow flickered between green and blue. Kindness. Show humans, maybe, and understand. Hope, maybe. Touch. Allowed. Someday? Ethan nodded. Yes, someday. He decided to take a risk. He began secretly documenting his interactions with Lyra and the other Luthari. He wrote notes about their culture, their needs, and their ways of communication. He wanted to show the council that fear should not be stronger than understanding. But it was dangerous. Other humans were wary. The council had strict rules. Any breach could mean punishment or even the end of Ethan's mission. Yet he could not ignore what he saw. The sadness in the Luthari, the longing for connection. Over the next week, Ethan's bond with Lyra grew stronger. They laughed together, shared silent moments, and even began to play small games, like moving stones and arranging them in patterns, communicating through shapes and vibrations. Though they could not touch, Ethan felt closer to Lyra than to any human he knew. One evening, as the two of them watched the twin moons rise over the silver forest, Lyra spoke softly. Human, you, different. You care, want learn, touch forbidden. Still care. Humans, maybe, different? Ethan looked at her surprised. I hope so. I hope humans can change, can learn, can trust. Lyra's skin glowed faint green. Trust. Yes, maybe, possible. Slowly. Touch. One day? Maybe one day, Ethan said, smiling. I promise. One day. But even as he said it, he knew the council would not allow it. He knew the rules were strict, and yet the bond he felt with Lyra was too strong to ignore. He realized that humanity's greatest strength was not technology, not weapons, not rules, and it was curiosity, empathy, and the courage to grow. Ethan decided then that he would do whatever it took to help humans understand the Luthari. He would show them that touch was not danger. It was trust, connection, and life itself. And maybe, just maybe, humans could rise to the challenge. The next day, Ethan returned to the forest again. Lyra was waiting, her glow a hopeful green. As he approached, she asked softly, almost trembling, Human. Why forbidden? Touch. Why? Humans. Afraid? Ethan stopped. He thought about it carefully. Humans. Afraid of unknown. Afraid of harm. But I think afraid of feeling too much. Afraid of caring too much. But we can learn. We can grow. I will help humans understand your touch, your ways, your life. Lyra's glow brightened, a mix of green and soft blue. Human. You. Promise. Teach humans. Touch, trust, maybe friendship? Yes, Ethan said. I promise. I will try. I will show humans your life, your way, your touch. is not danger. It is connection. For a long moment they stood silently, watching the forest sway in the evening light. Ethan could not touch her, but he felt it. A deep connection. A bond that did not need hands, only understanding. And in that moment, he knew that the future of humans and Luthari could be different. The bond was fragile, but it existed, and sometimes that was enough to begin a revolution. As he returned to the colony that night, Ethan wrote down everything he had learned. He wrote about Lyra, about the Luthari, and about the sadness of a species forbidden from what was most natural to them. He wrote about hope, about trust, and about the promise that one day, humans could rise to meet them, and somewhere, deep in the glowing forest, Lyra whispered to the air. Her words carried on vibrations only her kind could feel. Human. Maybe touch. Forbidden. Still care. Maybe one day. Trust. Touch. Life. Friendship. And for the first time, Ethan truly believed it could happen.